Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Gus. I'm your host, former NFL quarterback Gus Frerotte, and welcome to the new 1631 Digital News Studio. You know, some people say, no news is good news. Well, I say to those people, you've never read 1631digitalnews.com. Go to 1631digitalnews.com to get your latest news, sports, music, and entertainment. And maybe even listen to your favorite podcast, Huddle Up with Gus. Check it out today at www.1631digitalnews.com.
Huddle Up with Gus is brought to you by Vegas Sports Advantage. Clients of Vegas Sports Advantage are winning big in 2021, and you can be a part of the winning too. As of June 1st, $100 bettors are up $3,700. $500 bettors are up $18,500, and $1,000 bettors are up $37,000, and $5,000 bettors are up $185,000. Become a client today by clicking the link in the description below, and use promo code HUDDLEUP to take 25% off your package today, thanks to our partnership.
Welcome to what surely will be a doozy of a matchup right here, sports fans. Whether your game is on the gridiron, at the diamond, or on the links, we can only say, welcome to this week's Huddle Up with Gus. 15-year NFL quarterback Gus Frerotte, passion for sports, has taken him on the field and behind the benches, playing for 7 NFL franchises with 114 TDs under his belt. Gus knows who the players are and how the games are won.
It's not every day you get to hang out with an NFL quarterback, huh?
Okay, sports fans, from the decked out and plush 1631 digital studios, it's kickoff time. So snap your chin straps on and get ready to huddle up with Gus.
Strange variety, but again, a big play to Leslie.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Gus. I'm your host, Gus Frerotte, 15-year NFL quarterback, and I want to welcome you to the Huddle Up with Gus podcast. Today, we have a special guest, and I can't wait to introduce him. But before we do that, I want to thank all of my friends out there and my sponsors. So I want to thank 1631 Digital News. I want to thank my team, Brian and Terry. I want to thank Sounder FM for always hosting us on their platform and putting our podcast up. They do a great job with new technologies to really transcribe everything that we're saying and put it out there for all of you to watch, read, listen to, whatever you want to do. And then lastly, I want to thank Vegas Sports Advantage. If you really want to win some cash, go to Vegas Sports Advantage. They're going to help you turn those bets into some real money. Use my code HUDDLEUP and save 25% when you sign up. So go to Vegas Sports Advantage and win some money. But today, this is a guy that this is a player. This is a famous person that, we both grew up in Pittsburgh. He's just an incredible person, incredible player. So many stories. Joe, I can't tell you how many things have been going through my mind since you said you would come on our show. And I'd love to talk to you about how we grew up similarly, but joining me today, Super Bowl III champion, all around, just changed the NFL and the AFL and how things happened. But joining me today, Joe Namath. Joe, how are you doing?
Gus, it's good to be with you. I'm doing well. 6 grandchildren, and a couple of daughters and guys that we're all healthy.
Yeah. So, you look great, man. You look great. You look like you still wing it a little bit.
Oh, man, I wish I could. I've been having a little problem. I think I heard it at the bowling alley with my...
Yeah, mine was at the racquetball court. Well, when you get done, you want to stay in shape, right? And you hate just to run and lift. And I was trying to play with my friends, and I got on the racquetball court, and the competitive stuff just comes out. And I'm like, I want to beat these guys bad. And I swung and tore my rotator.
Man.
Yeah, but, I don't know. It hasn't hurt my golf game, so I'm okay.
Well, I'm right on the edge of giving that sport up.
Yeah.
Playing the worst I've ever played in my life. And I haven't played actually for about 6 months now. So
I don't know what's worse, like throwing an interception or having a bad round of golf.
An interception.
Yeah.
We're dealing with the pain, man.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
So, we usually talk on the show about how we grew up, And I know that you grew up in Beaver Falls. I mean, you have a long history. It's a mill town. Your parents were, your dad was a steel guy. You had brothers and sisters. I mean, that's how I was. I mean, I came from a big Catholic. My dad was one of 15 kids, right? There's nothing more Catholic than that. He was a mill guy too. He worked at PPG. And talk to me a little bit about how growing up in Beaver, like the friendships you started, and then when you really started to fall in love with sports.
Wow. As early as I can remember falling in love with sports. I mean, there was like 3 buddies that one across the street this way, one across the street that way, and the other. And between the 4 of us, that's all we did was play some kind of ball. Whether we're getting mom to sew up a pair of socks, an old pair of socks that we can hit with a broomstick or a stick in the backyard. And just love sports. I remember going up to the high school games when I was a kid on a Friday night with the gang, man, from the lower end. And I think I learned early on, though, in watching that not only was it fun, but whenever you won, we were happy.
Yeah.
When we were competing at different parts of town, the projects, which was just a little north of us in Beaver Falls, we'd go play them. And life's a game, team game. I've learned this through the years, Gus. We don't do much on our own.
Right.
We work together, and sports is a great teacher. And you learn that it's not all about you all the time. You get humbled many times. You get knocked down a lot of times. And hopefully with the right education and folks pushing you, you get back up and keep going. So I love Western Pennsylvania, man. You know all about it too.
Oh my gosh. And people always ask me, like, what makes quarterbacks from PA so tough? And I said, for me, it was my dad. My dad was just the toughest guy I've ever met. He was the youngest boy. He was the 3rd youngest kid. He said, he was in the Korean War. He goes, I never had a new pair of shoes until I got to the Army. And so I've seen that guy do crazy things, like take a chainsaw across his hand and just keep working. And I'm like, Dad, you got to go to the emergency room. He's like, we'll do it after I get done with the job. And I'm like, and so when I tell people what makes us tough, our parents and the people around us were tough. That's kind of how Pittsburgh is.
Gus, you just bounced in my brain here again. It starts at home, life. If we're lucky enough to have folks around us, our environment, our family, the love, and that can guide us in the right way, we're very fortunate. And I had a family of that nature too. I had friends that didn't quite have that kind of family when we were growing up. That through life, I understand, or I've grown to know and believe that it starts at home most of the time. Yeah. And boy, our families gave us a lot of support.
Yeah, it was amazing that what they did give us. And so I'm sure you played all 3 sports. Growing up in Pittsburgh, we didn't have soccer and lacrosse and all that. We had football, baseball, and basketball. That's all I ever played. That's all I ever can remember.
Gus, I tried hockey. I tried getting on that ice too, but I fell out on that coccyx a couple of times. Yeah. My tailbone, I said, oh man, I can't do this. And Pittsburgh didn't have a professional hockey team back then when we were growing up. So football, basketball, and baseball, the 3 seasons, man. And as an athlete, I love making the transition into all of them, and there's not one of them that I disliked. I loved all of them. And football, by the way, people over the years would ask me about my favorite sport, and it didn't go to football because I told them I don't like getting hit. Right. I don't like getting knocked down. I don't like, baseball I loved, man. Basketball I loved. And football, we played it because we loved the competition for sure.
Well, I think it sounds like you were a lot like me because I grew up a half mile from our football field in high school. When I was a kid, I can remember we'd sneak under the fence so we didn't have to pay for the ticket, which was like 75 cents or something, right? We'd sneak under the fence and go to the Friday night games. And just the energy and the people that were there was nothing like it because the whole town came.
Yeah. the fence, we had the fence that we climbed over instead of sneaking under up at Old Geneva College. We played at a field that Geneva had up there. And boy, going to those Friday night games, man, I watched guys playing Joe Walton. I don't know if you remember Coach Walton. Okay, yeah. Well, he was a great halfback in Beaver Falls. And I watched him, man, when I was a kid growing up. And Joe went on to Pitt and, of course, the pro ball and became a coach. But I just marveled at these guys, how they could play football on Friday nights. We were watching them. And at halftime, Gus, we'd go over behind the bleachers and play free for all.
Oh, yeah, we did too.
So, yeah. That was no pads, but the guy that got the stone or whatever it was, everybody ran after him to tackle him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I always tell people that growing up like we did and having a community like we did and where you played every sport, like I learned to play basketball, not because I got coached in it, just because we went and did it. There was no refs, nobody. Like you called your own fouls and you were still friends after the game. It was great. I mean, I miss those days a lot.
Yeah, well, I knew I couldn't play basketball when those guys from Farrell and Sharon came down to Beaver Falls. Man, those cats could play, boy. In Washington, too, little Washington. Our basketball teams, we weren't as successful as we wanted to be. But I loved the basketball. I was able to palm it. Probably you, too. Your size, whatever. Man, when you could palm and when you could dunk frontwards and backwards. One of the highlights of my sporting life was in college. Between my junior and senior year, I got to dunk two-handed. Man,
oh, really?
Oh yeah, boy, it was wonderful. I did dig basketball.
It was great. Back in the day, the music would be playing, the cheerleaders and all the kids from school would be in there. And we had the great little gyms, and you'd run down to the music and doing the lineup drill. You remember all that? That was like just so much fun.
I remember.
And then you got all your buddies had nicknames. You didn't call them by their real name. They all had nicknames.
Yeah, and I remember I wasn't a real Boy Scout, but I went to join the Boy Scouts because the meetings were in a gym under a church, in the church basement. Right. So we could play basketball right after the meetings and stuff. But I wasn't a real good scout, and somehow I didn't make the grade, man. But we got to play it indoors during the winter time a little bit.
Yeah, you didn't get a lot of patches, you're saying, when you were in the Boy Scouts, but you shot a lot of free throws, probably. And the other thing, Joe, is that we had tough coaches, right? I think it was your coach was Coach Bruno, right? And we had in football, my coach was my wife's dad, and that's how I met my wife, was through him. But he was divorced from his wife and she lived with her mom. So I really didn't know her, but he coached football for 42 years. We ran the wing tee in high school, and I never went through harder practice in my life than I did in high school. It was just like, I think that's part of being tough too, what our coaches put us through. And then they were mentors. And I know your coach introduced you into the Hall of Fame, which tell me a little bit about that.
Well, going back through the lifetime, I started with home and how our family treated us. And I can't put enough emphasis on what my high school coach, Larry Bruno, brought to the table when he came to Beaver Falls High School in my junior year.
Yeah.
Coach Bruno, he was terrific. Let me just put it that way. And we won the championship the senior year. Coach Bruno was an All-American football player himself, a halfback at Geneva College, and he ended up being selected to play in East-West Shrine game out in California.
Out of Geneva. That's pretty good.
Yeah, man. And he was a magician too, an amateur magician and stuff. And that's how we got the ball handling down and the deception in the backfield. People used to think the quarterback would make the big fake, but we had a fullback named Bert Kerstetter, went on to Princeton and played, boy. Bert, he carried out, he'd get a pocket up like that and clamp down. Just boom. But I still had the ball. I just tucked it in there. And he's the one that sold the fake. A lot of people think the quarterbacks are selling the fakes, but the running back can really.
Always.
Yeah, man. And then I go out of high school, and Coach Bruno, I get to go to meet and play for Coach Paul Bear Bryant at Alabama. And I had never even heard of Coach Bryant before that.
Yeah.
I watched Alabama play Penn State in the Liberty Bowl in late 59 or 60. And I think Alabama lost 7-0, but I liked the way they played, man. And then I saw Coach Bryant, what kind of leadership that I was there under, and discipline. You know, Coach Bruno and Coach Bryant, if you want to play ball, you got to do the other things in life first,
right,
and measure up to how they want to do it. And then, Gus, I get in the pro ball, and I got Weeb Eubank, who had already won a championship in the NFL, was a Paul Brown pupil.
Right.
You know, I mean, the football lineage, these guys, I was so lucky to have those kind of coaches. Even had Coach Lou Holtz there for almost a full season. But what he did leave with me was he was a brilliant coach. It just, like Coach Saban, maybe college football or pro sports was not their cup of tea, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they go back to college, and God Almighty, they just were wonderful.
Yeah, I had Coach Saban as my coach when I played for the Dolphins.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, you know better than I do then.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say anything, but I understand what you mean. Like the pros probably weren't for Coach Saban, but definitely college. You know, it was a little different story for him. Obviously, he's been super successful at your alma mater. But you know, those coaches, like I looked up Weeb Eubanks, you know, and I started like thinking in my head, he looks just like my high school coach. And like all these memories came flying back of high school and what Harry did for us. Harry's a Hall of Fame coach in Pennsylvania. You know, he coached many kids, and you know, and we didn't have a lot of athletes. I mean, I played football with 19 kids on my team. I don't know what it was like at Beaver Falls, but we didn't have like a crazy amount of athletes. But man, everybody gave 100%.
Well, we were lucky, you know, we had a little league team in Beaver Falls too. I mean, we'd go out and play Chippewa or Elwood City or someplace around there. But we were fortunate with the adults. They loved football, man. You know, just being 28 miles from Pittsburgh, the Steelers. We were big fans of the Steelers and the Rooneys, of course. Everyone loved the family.
Yeah, you know, that was the thing, too, about growing up is that we didn't have a lot of channels, but everybody on Sundays in the fall, we'd go play our football games in the winter. All of us, everybody from the whole town would come. We'd play football, but you had to be home by 1 to watch the Steelers. That was always the thing. I tell people that all the time. Everybody would come and play football, and then we'd just had to be home by 1 o'clock. You had to go to church at 8. After church, go home, change, play football.
Yeah, you just brought back in my mind's eye, man, sitting there with my dad, seeing Bobby Lane and the Detroit Lions playing Chicago, and I would call pass or run, like I knew what I was doing, right? It's just feel watching them, you know, but we watched religiously every week, man.
Oh, it was great. My dad was one of 15 kids, right, Joe? And every Christmas, it was like one day you go to one brother or sister's house, the next day would be the next. So you didn't have people just coming in your house all the time. So I remember when we'd go to their houses, I'd just sit in front of the TV and watch the games, right? I wouldn't even care. Like, well, my one uncle had a lot of trains, so I'd go look at all the trains he had in his basement. But then it was always watching football, you know. And for me, it was like Dan Fouts, all these guys. It was just football's always been in my blood.
It was great. Beaver Falls High School, Geneva College, Pittsburgh Steelers, man, when it was football season, we were tuned in.
It was wonderful. So I was pretty, you know, when I started reading, I saw that you were thinking about Maryland as well. Like they recruited you pretty heavily.
Yes, I really liked Maryland. They had a coach there named Tom Nugent who had come in with an offense. He put the I formation in, I believe, while he was at Florida State. And he was just a full of energy. I really liked him. It was close enough to home, only 300 miles away that, you could get back. And there were some Western Pennsylvania guys there too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Marty Schottenheimer. God bless him. He left us too soon, but he and I were recruited together. That's where I got to meet Marty Mo Arbatina from down in El Equipa, man. So I really liked Maryland, but I didn't measure up intelligence-wise or college board scores. I messed up on the college board scores. I wasn't sharp enough. And Coach Nugent, I believe, called Coach Bryant at Alabama and told him that I was still out there. Alabama had sent 2 coaches to Beaver Falls during our basketball season. Coach Dude Hennessy and Charlie Bradshaw was a coach that went on to be the head coach of Kentucky for a while too. Well, when these 2 coaches came, they came to talk to me, and it was in the afternoon before basketball game. And Gus, I couldn't understand them. They really had the Southern brogue, And I said, whoa, wait a minute. First of all, it's basketball season. I want to focus on the basketball.
Yeah, right.
And so that's what transpired then. And then I was getting recruited by other schools and traveling around. I ended up signing with 5 different universities. You could do that at the time as long as they weren't in the same conference.
Yeah, right.
So I just didn't know. I wanted to play baseball. I really wanted to play baseball. And
who was your idol in baseball?
Roberto Clemente, man. Stan the Man Musial. I saw Stan the Man one night step in the box and hit it out in the right field, Forbes Field. Hit it a home run. But then at the bottom of the inning, Dale Long came up. And Dale Long hit his 8th straight game home run.
Oh, my gosh.
Right after that. Yeah, my Uncle Joe used to take me up to the Pirate games.
You got to go to Forbes Field?
Oh, yes. I dig Brody. You kidding? Mazeroski. It was such a thrill for me to meet Billy.
My gosh.
And play golf with Billy in one of those football player tournaments. Yeah, man.
Oh yeah, that would have been a treat. I actually interned with the Pirates after my senior year in college back in Three Rivers when it was Three Rivers, and I loved it. Like I got to know everyone. I mean, my dad used to fall asleep with a transistor radio on our glider on our porch, listening to Pirate games all the time.
Yeah, I hear you. I could see myself sitting right there beside the radio. Right there beside the radio.
Yeah, exactly.
In Milwaukee. And I think it was Elroy Face. Had a perfect game going for like 12 innings, 10 innings. And the game ended up, I don't remember how it ended up.
Right.
But sitting there just leaning against that radio as close as you could be so I wouldn't upset my mother who was messing around working. Working.
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you.
Doing the night.
The game would be playing. He'd fall asleep on a glider because he just worked a double or something, and I'd cover him up and go to bed and he'd sleep out there all night. This is kind of how we grew up, and I just think like I was just researching, and thinking about where you grew up, where I grew up, how similar it was. Obviously, I never won the championships you did, but I think it's just amazing. Like kids from this area all kind of were similar back in the day. Like our dads were mill guys. And like, if you were a kid that had any promise, they didn't try to push you towards the mill. Like my dad, like most people went to PPG or Alger. And I'm sure in your town, a lot of people were meant to go to the steel mill.
Yeah.
Right. But if you had some promise, the whole town kind of got around you. Did you feel like that happened at Beaver Falls a little bit with you because you were such an incredible athlete?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And Beaver Falls, the people, whether it's Ford City, whether it's wherever other places, man, they're proud of their players, their town. They want them to win.
Yeah.
They were for us all the time. And when we even messed up off the field sometimes, the police force would say, hey, you got to behave yourself. You got a game coming up Friday night, at home.
Well, I was more afraid to go home to my dad than the police.
Yeah.
We
had a coal cellar. We had a coal cellar down in the basement. Yeah.
You were just praying your mom didn't say anything to your dad.
Oh, please. Yes.
Yeah, because that wasn't good, him working and coming home and have to take care of you too. But, it's just those stories that pushed us through. And then you get to Alabama. I went to Tulsa in Oklahoma. So I'm thinking like, God, you went far away from home. I went far away from home where your town, your people couldn't come see you. And the media wasn't the same. Our games weren't televised like probably your games. Like Alabama played on national TV a lot. But that was probably a little different for you too. Explain that transition a little bit.
Well, when I was a freshman in '61 at Alabama, our varsity won the national championship.
Yeah.
It was the first one. Coach Bryant had come to the university, I believe it was in '58, and took him a couple of years to get things going. But the other thing about Coach Bryant, when he coached at Kentucky, Gus, he had 2 Western Pennsylvania quarterbacks there.
Really?
Vito Babe Pirelli.
Yeah.
And George Blanda.
Oh, gosh, George Blanda. Yeah.
Coach Bryant knew Western Pennsylvania. He knew football there. And I just got to believe that because of George and Babe, Coach Bryant took a chance on me. And Coach Bryant also went to Maryland his first year out of the military to coach. But going in as a freshman at Alabama, these guys, they expected to win.
Yeah.
I mean, they were going to win. Coach Bryant was going to teach us enough. He's going to make us win.
Yeah, exactly.
So we did, my sophomore year, Gus, we were undefeated, #1 in the country. We go over to Georgia Tech, and we end up losing over there 7-6. Then the next week we beat Auburn 38-0. Then we beat Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl 17-0. And one of the things Coach Bryant told us in our freshman meeting, first class, he said, y'all going to remember the losses more than you're going to remember the wins. And he is right, boy.
Remember those
losses in that college career. Just, they were all, we're playing under center. We feel like that we didn't play our best, and had we would have probably won all 4 of those games.
I just blame all the kickers for the games I lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I could just imagine, like when I went to Oklahoma, I had a lot of guys from Western PA down there, went to Tulsa, right? We had a coach who was from Pittsburgh who recruited our area. So I felt at home a little bit, and my accent wasn't so far off because there were a lot of other people. When you got to Alabama, I mean, that draw down there is way different than Pittsburgh. How long did it take you to get used to that?
Oh, a good while. I mean, yeah. I keep trying to listen, and I didn't understand things. There was one player on our team who was a transfer from Hines Junior College. He was a senior, and when I was a freshman, and he was from Philadelphia, South Philly. Yeah. And he was the oldest player on the team, too. So he communicated to me pretty well. But Coach Bryant, I think Coach Bryant let the team know that this Yankee or these guys, they were still Yankee stuff, man,
I could imagine.
Oh, yes. Well, you got a lot of players with different attitudes on any team today, you see. So it wasn't comfortable to start out with. And they let you know where they were coming from. But I got to believe Coach Bryant helped out big time with letting them know that this is about us now, football, and
right.
Because he did coach Babe and
so he was used to that Yankee accent. Yeah, we got another one coming down. Yeah, that was always tough. And then you go from Alabama, which is you're on the national stage. I went from Tulsa, but I go to DC, and you go to New York. Like those, to me, I was like, okay, like New York. The media is crazy huge. DC, the Post, and everything. I mean, it was such a different something that I wasn't used to. But I'm sure you had a little bit of that because you guys were winning all the time in Alabama.
Well, we were winning, but my first game as a sophomore, Gus, we're playing Georgia at home. We're the defending national champs. And we win the game 31-0 in Birmingham.
Yeah.
We get in the locker room, and I'm sitting beside him, our center and middle linebacker, Leroy Jordan, who was a great man and a great player, boy.
Yeah, he was.
The news guys come over and they start talking to me, and all of a sudden, Coach Bryant comes up walking behind me, pushing those guys out of the way. He said, get away from that popcorn kid. Don't talk to the guys that did the winning. And man, I said, and Leroy hit me right across the chest. They just, boom. You don't know him yet, buddy. You don't keep quiet.
Yeah.
I started to take offense a little bit or defend myself.
Right.
But man, we had, the media covered us, of course, but Coach Bryant was there, and we learned, Gus, I never read about myself after college or whatever. If I did, I snuck it and peeked.
Right.
And I learned that it was either too good or too bad, funky. And when it was really bad, well, I said, what am I putting myself through here? I know how we did. I know how we did. I know I did. So I was lucky to not read about myself for years to this time. I appreciate a story that's done, whatever. And if my daughter gives it to me and says, here, look at this, I'll
That's
look.
a good one.
But to keep myself sane and to keep my nervous system intact, I learned I couldn't do that. Back, from college on, man, I just couldn't do that because I'd beat myself up.
Well, you would, because you feel like you played well, and then all of a sudden some reporter comes out and says you didn't. You're like, what's he talking? You know what I mean? So you realize that you can't put any stock into what other people are saying. You have to look at yourself.
Well, whether it was Coach Bryant or Coach Bruno, one of the coaches said, look, if you read that stuff, it's either too good or it's bad. He said, don't you never played that good or that well, and you hadn't played that badly. So, don't do that. Don't follow that. We'll evaluate how you played here with the team.
Yeah. So, hey, everyone, we're talking with Joe Namath from the Jets, and also played for the Rams one year. We'll get into that a little bit. But, Joe, I appreciate you coming on. I want to thank you so much for taking some time and sharing your story. Hey, Huddle Up with Gus listeners, Manscaped. They sent me, they hooked me up with a bunch of tools and formulations for their package 3.0 kit. So, I want to show you guys what's in the perfect package, right? We all think we got a perfect package, but they sent me the perfect package 3.0 kit. And I want to show you what they sent me. So it was crazy. It came in this great box, and you can see what it says. They will thank you, because they send us this awesome trimmer. They sent us, stuff that makes you smell better. And then, they sent me this great, some boxers even, which you get, right? Protect them. And then, they sent me this cool sack, I guess you want to call it, to store all your stuff in. So it's been great. Manscaped sent me a bunch of product, you can see it all on here. You can go to manscaped.com and put in the code Gus Frerotte. That's GUSFREROTTE. Get 20% off and free shipping when you use that code. But you can get a kit. You can get individual items like this way cool groomer that has a little LED light, ceramic. These things come apart. They're waterproof. You can do a lot with them. So, Manscaped is great. It's funny. I remember when I was playing with the Denver Broncos, and I'm not going to mention any names, but there was a gentleman who was playing on our team. And, if he ever hears the story, he'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But he brought his own clippers in one time, and he used it to trim his beard up and his goatee and everything. And he had them there for about 2 or 3 weeks. And he goes in around the corner, he walks in, and there's another player that is actually manscaping with his beard trimmer. So, one of the things is you don't want to use the same trimmer down there that you use up here. So he kind of freaked out a little bit, and he said, hey, how long have you been using that tool there? And he said, well, it showed up here about 3 weeks ago, and I've been using it ever since. So, there is a lesson learned that, don't leave things out. And probably if it would have just said Manscaped on it, we wouldn't have had that issue. But it's probably one of the funniest taking care of your balls stories I've ever heard or been around in the locker room in the NFL. So it's a great story. But I always said there was no way to know. There was no name on it, and the guy was just using it, and another guy was using it. It was not good, but it's a heck of a funny story. So one of the best I've ever heard in my 15 years playing in the league. But there's so many great things about Manscaped and what they're doing. Because guys, you got to take care of yourself. Even though I got gray hair and getting older, but you still have to maintain some sort of grooming, right? And so, we all work out. For me, I like working in my yard, doing those things now that I'm retired, getting a little sweat on and everything. You want to smell good. You got to take care of yourself. They got some great products. This one, a little ball deodorant. We all need that here and there. After, working in the yard, taking a hike, doing a walk, whatever you do. It's a great thing, but there's so many great products. I want to thank Manscaped for sending them to me. The Lawnmower 3.0, obviously you can use it anywhere in your body, but I'm sure you guys have all seen the commercials. But this is one just letting you know that the Lawnmower 3.0 comes with the perfect kit. You can buy the lawnmower by itself. You can buy all these products individually. They even sent me this wonderful shirt. You can see the back. Your balls will thank you. And then here's the front. So it's an awesome shirt. They have great gear. And you know what? Sometimes you can just sit back, take care of your balls a little bit, and read the paper. So I think Manscaped even has their own daily news, which is great. So don't forget that you can go to the code Gus Frerotte, and that's GUSFREROTTE, and you can save 20% on any products. The perfect package gift set, and you can save 20% and get free shipping. So use the code Gus Frerotte, GUSFREROTTE. Hey, everybody spells my name wrong. They even spelled it wrong in the back of my Pro Bowl jersey. So, I gotta help you guys out. So don't forget how important it is that you use these products. Take care of yourself down below and have some fun, right? There's nothing closer to you than your little buddies. So use the lawnmower, use the code Gus Frerotte, save 20% and get free shipping, and order some great Manscaped products.
So, hey, everyone, we're talking with Joe Namath from the Jets, and also played for the Rams one year. We'll get into that a little bit. But, Joe, I appreciate you coming on. I want to thank you so much for taking some time and sharing your story. I have a good friend. He's a little older than me. He grew up in Long Island. And I said, okay, I got to call Rick. His name's Rick Justo. Rick was a lacrosse player, didn't really play football. He was an All-American lacrosse player at Virginia. And I said, Rick, what do you remember about Joe Namath, right? Because I wanted to hear from somebody that kind of watched you, knew you. And you know what he said? First thing he said, he didn't mention football or anything. He said, Joe Namath broke barriers for me as a kid. And I was like, really? He goes, yeah. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, he just did things that nobody else was doing. As far as the media goes, as far as just being out there and doing different things. And he said he was such an idol to us, not only on the football field, but everything you were doing off. And he said, I remember Joe used to come to our camps, and in Long Island, you were just, he said the same thing. You were just so gracious, such a great guy to be around. And I said, well, thanks, Rick. That means a lot. And I can't wait to tell Joe that story. So Rick really had some complimentary things. And it wasn't, I thought he was going to say, okay, about Super Bowl III or whatever, but he talked about you and everything else besides football.
Well, please give Rick my best, man. And I tell you, I went when I visited Maryland, Gus, on a football visit. They let me watch Maryland play either Virginia or Wake Forest in lacrosse.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I had ever heard of the sport or I ever saw the sport. And I thought, wow, look at these guys. I became such a fan, man. I'd be watching the Long Island teams on television. New York.
Oh, yeah. Those
Long
Island kids were great at lacrosse.
Yeah, but it was just that thing about a guy with that stick in his hand being able to whack somebody the way Jimmy Brown used to play. He just put the damn thing in.
Well, Jimmy Brown's like you. He changed the rules about everything in lacrosse. You know what I mean? Like he would just run. He just put that stick on his chest and run through people. I always said if we would have had lacrosse growing up, it would have been such a fun sport to play. It was everything that we liked. It was baseball, football, basketball's movement, passing, vision, hitting. It was all of it.
Yeah, well, I was never real keen on the hitting part or getting hit, I should say. So when people ask me what my favorite sport was, I tell them baseball and I like basketball. He said, not football? I said, well, I love football. I didn't like to get hit.
Yeah.
But football is a tough game, tough physically, tough mentally. And
well, I'm like you. We all have knee issues and we have other injuries. Football takes its toll on your body all the time. Yeah. And you grew up when those refs weren't blowing the whistle as fast when you were getting hit.
Well, the rules were different, no doubt. The game's better today than ever. The athletes are bigger, stronger, faster, and that's great. We've learned from yesteryear, just like these great coaches now, like Nick Saban, he's learned from the coaches ahead of him.
Right.
The Paul Browns or whatever. He worked with Belichick, too, at Cleveland. These they go back in history, and they've learned from it. The good Lord did a wonderful job with the animal we are,
right.
Physically, mentally, but these bodies aren't designed to play that sport. You're going to get hurt.
Yeah, I heard a story about like you had like such an innovative knee surgery while you were playing, but you weren't quite under, right? And you had to show them where your knee was hurting or something, where your bone spur was during the surgery.
Well, actually coming out of it, going in, I didn't have a problem. The Dr. Nicholas knew where my problem was by moving it around. But until you go inside, and Dr. Nicholas mentioned this too at the time, until you go inside, you're not absolutely sure what you're confronted with. And we did the surgery. When I woke up after the surgery, Gus, I had a cast on from my ankle to my thigh. And standing next to my bed was my three brothers, my three older brothers. And Dr. Nicholas was down at the end of the bed.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm glad to see my brothers, but I'm still a little bit foggy, right? Dr. Nicholas started about exercise, how we had to start working on that quadricep muscle, how we can get the leg strong again.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, yes. And he takes my leg and he picks it up by the heel. And he has my right knee in the air, the right leg, and he has the heel. He said, now, Joe, we're going to start now.
Oh.
Yes, sir. He said, we're going to start now. He said, I'm going to move my hand away from your heel, and I want you to hold that leg up there. Well, guys, my three older brothers are standing there. I had to really try, man.
Yeah, right.
I had to really try. I felt like that thing was bursting, blowing up.
Oh, yeah.
Moved his hand away, man. I was struggling. I'm shaking. I held it up a little while there, and then I couldn't hold it anymore. But if my three brothers hadn't been there, I wouldn't have lasted that long.
Oh, that's funny. And you played your career with a lot of injuries. And I think in Super Bowl III, you played with a broken thumb. Is that right?
Well, it wasn't broken. We never did X-ray the thing. Well, we didn't know what was wrong.
Right. Yeah. It just hurt like hell. That's all I knew.
There were things you just didn't know. It hurt. Yeah. I had it pulled back. I fell on it wrong. Well, we didn't know the extent of it. I couldn't quite, early on in the couple of weeks before, I couldn't quite put the kind of pressure with the hand, with the thumb, maybe. It would distract me. It would distract me. And then in the game one time, I ended up bumping a helmet and had to come off the field for a play. And Vito went in there, man. My man, Vito. Yeah. I loved him, boy. He was a great teacher. Dave Pirelli, boy.
Yeah. So I think that we've all been through that. And all the struggles that we went through growing up, and you see our families, like you talk about, it starts at home, and toughness, that there were so many times when I would get hit and I'd be laying there and it would just hurt. And I'd just think about my dad, be like, all I'd hear in my head was, get your ass up off the ground. Right. That was what I heard. Like, and that all started at home. Like we were talking about what was that like cause I know you played through a lot in your career, a lot of injuries and all that. What was that? Did you have that voice in your head that was telling you that?
Starting with the good Lord, giving me a chance to get back up or get to go at I was very religious and still am. I knew I had to try. I didn't like the alternative. Right. I wouldn't accept not doing it, so to speak. Some people have injuries where they don't have a choice. You can't go on. But what I had with the knees and the hands, the shoulder, 3 torn ligaments, picking up a middle linebacker on a 6, came from a 6-1 blitz up the middle, man, and just came clean. And so I just relaxed. And boy, first thing hit the ground was that right shoulder. That was 3 ligaments, boy. But we were lucky. I was lucky. I followed your career, guys. I don't know how, man. I wouldn't have been able to make the transitions, I don't think, that you were able to make. See, I did play for Chuck Knox with the Los Angeles Rams. And I love Chuck and his wife, Shirley, man. I met him when he was a junior high basketball coach in Elwood City. Elwood, Pennsylvania.
He was a junior high basketball coach? I didn't know that.
Yes. And Chuck, he went on, of course, to become head coach in pro ball, but he was also the offensive line coach of the New York Jets when they were recruiting me or talking to me about playing for them. So we had a few years together with the Jets. And one of the things that I was kind of felt bad about, Chuck, he left us. He moved on to a more paying job, a better job. I mean, these guys weren't making a lot of money at all.
No.
So Chuck had moved right after our 3rd year, maybe to Buffalo, and we got Joe Spencer, which was a heck of an offensive line coach, and we win the Super Bowl, a championship that year. So I wish Chuck had been a part of that. He was a part of it, but he just wasn't there at that time.
Yeah, well, I think everybody moves on, and that's the hardest part of sports, right? That you feel like like when I was in Washington, I had my quarterback coach was Cam Cameron, and Cam and I were just in sync. Everything I knew, like he taught me so well, and I respected him so much. And then he moved on to take a head coaching job somewhere else. And you feel like that it's probably like when you left Weeb or when he retired, right? You lose that part and you're trying to find it again. It's really hard to do.
It is hard to do. And, if it were easy, anybody could do it,
Right.
A lot of hard assignments in life, and because it's hard doesn't mean we won't try to do it, man.
No, that's true. That's true. So I have a question from a friend of mine. His name is Steve Buckhant. Steve has been the voice of Washington, their basketball team. They've had a couple names, but I've known him since I played with the Redskins. So I was texting him the other day and telling him that you're going to come on. He said, "Oh my God, Joe's like one of the only guys." He's interviewed Sonny. He knows all the guys, Sonny, Sam, Rigo, who's a buddy of yours.
Oh boy.
He knows them all. So I said, "What would you ask Joe?" And he said, "Can you ask Joe for me where he got the confidence to guarantee that they would win that Super Bowl?" That's what I always wanted to ask him. And so that's Steve Buckhant's down in DC wanted to ask you that question.
If you don't think you can, you won't. That was one of the first things Coach Bryant told us when we were down there.
Yeah, right.
What are we going to do? I was teed off, actually, but, didn't say anything because for 2 weeks, Gus, the media, people were telling everything. You couldn't avoid seeing it or hearing it with the points being a high number. You're an underdog like this and all. And a guy, again, this is in the Miami Touchdown Club banquet. I was receiving a thing. They recognized me. I was down there with our media director, Frank Ramus. God bless him, boy. He's still around, man. But Frank and I were down there, and as I get up to the podium, a guy in the back of the room yells out, "Hey, Namath, we're going to kick your..." And I said, whoa, wait a minute. We've been listening to that for 2-3 weeks. I got news for you, buddy. We're going to win the game, I guarantee it. And I was at him, Right. It wasn't like, I'm telling the world. This is Fives guy right there, And that's whatever it came out. And you can imagine, Gus.
What was the look on Frank's face?
Oh, Frank, I didn't look at Frank. I didn't know, Frank knew me well enough by that time, though. This was my 4th year.
Yeah.
And again, Gus, I had a lot of leeway and education from the president of the Jet team initially, a fellow named David A. Sonny Werblin. Now, Mr. Werblin, he was in a lot of businesses, but he and a gentleman, Lou Wasserman, had Music Corporation of America and had all these movie stars and everything. And the government said, you got to break up that conglomerate, whatever. Well, Mr. Werblin ended up coming back to Jersey. He's from Jersey, and he's a brilliant man. And they found out that Harry Wismer and the Titans were for sale for $1 million. So Mr. Werblin, along with 4 other guys, put up $200,000 apiece and bought the Jets franchise. Mr. Werblin literally said, "Stars sell tickets. I'm going to help you, Joe. You're going to help us. This is it together." He would get me on the Tonight Show. He knew Johnny Carson. He knew Freddie the quarterback. He knew the network leaders.
Yeah.
It wasn't old Joe thinking of these things, you see. Sonny Werblin and how he handled me those first 3 years. Would take me around Manhattan to different restaurants, the top spots, introduce me to people like Considine, these big guys. And he had more to do with that than I did. I could play, and I wanted to play, but I was naive. I was ignorant to what really he was doing with me, knowing that he's helping me. And I didn't realize it so much at the time, but I really learned to love the man and his wife. And Mr. and Mrs. Werblin, they were the reason that I grew in New York and winning, of course, Gus.
It helps everything, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So you went so Mr. Werblin helped you go from Beaver Falls Joe to Broadway Joe, is what you're saying.
Well, there's no doubt about it. Yes. He again, if you think you can't, you won't. And he made things big. He got me opportunities, and I got an education through those opportunities. Didn't do all of the things as well as I would have liked to have done, but I did learn from him. So, we keep trying to improve.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And so was he a big part of the merger, the AFL NFL merger? Because I know that's there was a lot of when you were going through that, you were AFL and then you go to the NFL, and the NFL teams were giving you guys a lot of flack about, they're not real pros. They're in the AFL. And then you guys come out and smack them.
What happened? We had 5 owners with the Jets. Mr. Leon Hess, who's a wonderful man. He's not with us anymore. His son Johnny is, and his family, but doesn't own the Jets at this time. Johnny had to sell. He was directed to sell. Anyway, Mr. Hess and Mr. Werblin had a disagreement, and they got an envelope and put in what they'd pay for the other guy's share, and Mr. Hess outbid Mr. Werblin, and Mr. Werblin wasn't an owner when we went into that fourth season and won the championship. But
Oh,
we were still together as friends, and Mr.
Yeah.
Hess too. Mr. Hess would come to the hospital, not just when I was in there, but when every player we had was in there. He would go into the hospital to visit with them. The hospital was on Park Avenue, and that's where Mr. Hess lived. It wasn't a big jump, but it was awful nice of that man to show every player on that team that he cared for them and their families.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah. So, I think about like you won a championship at every level. And I was thinking about what my friend Rick Justo said to me about how you broke barriers. You're the first guy to win a championship in college and then go to the pros and win a championship. And you won one in high school as well. Like there's not many people that can say those kind of things. And then you broke so many other barriers in the NFL for future players, as far as pay goes, as far as, like what you're talking about with Mr. Werblin, like just being out there and doing commercials. And I think one of the biggest things I read about you that I was so impressed with was that you were the first guy that a man, a woman, a child could idolize in sports. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just one or the other. It was everyone. And you did such a tremendous job with all of that.
Gus, I can't take much credit for any of that.
Yes,
it comes from home first. Our families taught us respect. Respect people, no matter where they're from, what color they are, what religion they are. You treat people the way you want them to treat yourself.
Right.
You got to have respect. Coach Bryant was a very respectful man. I saw him go out of his way. It's just the way he was to help people and respect people of color too, you see. And this was in the heart of Dixie at the time, which was a different world. So,
the first black man didn't play at Alabama until 1970, I think, something like that.
Gosh, I don't remember the exact year, but
I think Coach Bryant had a big say in all that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, he had a big say in all that. He was a strong man, and he believed. He had coached in the military as well, and he had coached at the University of Maryland, which was, I believe, integrated at the time. I'm not sure. But Coach Bryant was around coaches that had coached integrated teams. It was crazy, going back. We're talking about something now that we know is, wow, really? It's archaic, But having experienced that was a great education. And also even going into pro football, you're on 6 teams or so, or maybe, and I was on 2 in pro ball, but we do know not every guy in the locker room is on the same page every day with one another. And there were times in the locker room where guys would get cranky or whatever, and you try to be reasonable. And if you just separate or something, but work through it. We work through it for the main goal. It's us, the team together. And I was fortunate, again, starting at home with the right attitude to this day with the right attitude, man. God, the good Lord's put a lot of us animals down here, and it's healthier and healthy for us to all get along together rather than fighting with one another.
Well, one of my things when I was in the locker room, I thought it was so important that all good teams started in the locker room. We all had good coaches. We all had great athletes on our teams, but the locker room was key. And I did things sometimes that, I'd go to the coach and we had off-season workouts, and I'd say, hey, instead of today, can I take all these guys and can we go do this team building thing together? Right. We'd go play paintball or we'd do something like that. And it made us all closer, and guys appreciated it. And I also love playing pranks on people in the locker room, on guys I knew that weren't going to kick my butt. But I love doing that in the locker room. Like when Morton Anderson came to Minnesota and he was our kicker. I was the holder that year. Right? I had to learn how to hold for Morton, a left-footed kicker, a Hall of Famer. The first day he's there, it's freezing out. I take his clothes and I put him in a little thing, a bucket of warm water, and I freeze him, and I put him back in his locker while he's in his special teams meeting. And then he comes out, and they were all frozen in his locker. And he's like, there's Morton's been playing forever. And he just yells my name across the locker room. And it like broke the ice because he was new. And we've been friends ever since that. And then I came out from my meeting and my locker was completely empty. And my clothes were all frozen over the goalpost outside. So from that point on, we were buddies. But did you ever play any pranks on anybody in the locker room?
Boy. Being a quarterback and a smaller guy than most of them, but being back to Morton, what a wonderful character he is.
Oh, he's great.
I've gotten to know him over the years just from getting together at these athletic events and stuff, and he is a trip, boy. I just think he's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, he is great. Now, and I think but like you said, the locker room is so important. And, I love being in the locker room, getting to work early, seeing these guys come in, seeing their stories. We were all different. I was married young. I had young kids. I'd bring them in, but it was just something about those are the things that you miss about playing.
The camaraderie, the getting along or not getting along. It's an ongoing education, learning how to treat different personalities or be treated from different personalities. Life's an ongoing education if you allow it to be.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I love that. I love the way you said that. I'm going to remember that and use that from now on. I appreciate that.
Oh man, we live and learn. Hopefully we keep growing,
Yeah.
Hopefully. But it's not a perfect world.
Yeah, no, it's not. Last thing I want to ask you before we go here is that, I played football for 25 years straight through high school, college, and the pros. You played probably the same amount of time, right? From little, midgets all the way on up. And then all of a sudden when you're done, it's done. And we don't get that excitement, that experience anymore. How did you deal with that? Because you had some really highs in football. And then, so did I. I was very lucky, very humbled for everything I got to do. But you just never get to do that again. And sometimes I search for, how do I get that back?
I was lucky enough to be around good people. As I said, Chuck Knox, he and Shirley from Coraopolis, Pennsylvania, by the way. When I got out to the Rams, I met a different set of people, so to speak. Yeah. I had worked in a few movies prior to going out there. And so that transition out there, I met a couple of people and had a couple of new opportunities. And so I took some risks. I wanted to learn some things. Voice teacher to this day. I remember my first musical that I did. I couldn't sing a lick. I don't know from singing. To this day, I can swing a little bit because of what he taught me.
Yeah.
So being on stage and always kind of feeling on stage. As a Gemini, when I'm on the field or whatever, I know I'm performing. And there's a side of me that knows I'm on stage and I'm performing with and for the people. And that's a kind of a pressure. Yeah. And it's a thrill, when we do it well. It is great. Yeah. We don't feel good about it, but we don't quit. We don't give up. You go back after because you appreciate that opportunity. And you enjoy it. I enjoyed it so much. So I had a chance to exercise, still being on a field, whether it be the boards or in the theaters, and in that test. Time to go out there. The heart starts beating. You're back behind curtains, and then you start getting excited and getting the adrenaline rush. For several years in that area. It was a blessing. And it wasn't because I thought about it. It was because someone else thought about it.
I think it's so right. Like it's an adrenaline rush. It's the butterflies that you miss before the game, the first snap. You're under, you know what I mean? Like, and you're playing a tough defense and you're like, oh man, this is going to be a heck of a game. And you get the first snap or the first hit. Like those things, like, I think what you're saying is right. Like you get to go out and you want to perform. But like that, you'll never, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you just want somebody to hit you and say, okay, I'm ready. Let's go.
Because that first game when I was a sophomore starting against Georgia, we didn't score on the first drive or whatever. And I came over and I was nervous. I swear. I'd never been I've never felt that kind of pressure before, nervousness, whatever. Leaving the locker room, going down the ramp, man, my head was pounding. It hurt so bad. I was so tense. My head was pounding. And we got down at the bottom of that runway and started to go on the field, and the dadgum $1 Million Alabama band started playing Dixie. Yeah. Boy, you talking about getting fired up and going out there, and winning. Well, the first quarter, I'm not playing well, and I come off the field and I throw my helmet down under the bench there, and I sit down, and Coach Bryant comes over. He sits down beside me. He puts his hand up on the back of my neck here, and he starts squeezing my neck. Yeah. He said, boy, if you ever come off the field like that again, I'm going to kick your ass back to Pennsylvania before you know it. Oh. And I turned, I said, Coach, I'm not pissed off at you or anybody else. I'm pissed off at myself. And he just looked at me. Okay. And he got up and left, man. Whoa, boy. But that was the truth. I was frustrated. I was angry at myself, man. And we went out there and we won that game. But, boy, pressure. It's fun. That's the adrenaline. We get
it is. It's so much fun.
And then when we have a chance to get feedback that is literally people are smiling and enjoying. You don't please everybody. We're never going to please everybody.
No, you're never going to do that.
But we'll give it a shot.
Right. Exactly. So, Joe, tell us what what charities, what you're doing now, if our fans can follow anything or donate to anything that you're doing.
I've been living down here in Southeast Florida for the same house for 31 years now. And I've been blessed with 2 daughters that are healthy, and they both have 3 children. Daughter Olivia,
gotta be special.
They have a 14-year-old girl and a 6-year-old boy and a 2-year-old daughter. And Jessica and Ishwar have a 10-year-old daughter, 4 and a 5. He'll be 5 in September, and a 7-month-old. And throughout this whole last 2 years, guys, with this COVID stuff.
Yeah.
Jessica and those 3 grandchildren live next door to me.
Oh, it's so lucky.
I've been lucky every day. And I've been following the guidelines that the CDC has to say. I got to believe what Dr. Fauci says. And I believe that. So I haven't been traveling. I've made 1 trip since December of 19. Wow. I left town once, and 1 airplane ride since.
That's probably the first time. When's the last time you can say that you've done that? You've probably traveled so much in your lifetime. It's probably good just to take a break.
Senior year in high school, when we got recruited, then we started traveling, and since that time on, but December 8th of 19, man, I got back here to home and hadn't traveled until this past July. I believe it was this July when there was a calming down before this Delta thing had come up, and I've been vaccinated and all. I was went up to present an award at the ESPYs in New York. Fly in, stayed in the hotel, man, and did it, and then got out.
I'm in and out.
Yeah, but
they should have just used a hologram of you, at the Hall of Fame when you come out in the locker room.
Oh,
That's one of my favorite things. I go when I take people over because we're in Pittsburgh, we're not that far. And I said, you got to see Joe come out in the holographic image. It is so cool in that locker room.
That Hall of Fame that's a wonderful spot, man. And I guess I talked to David Baker 3 days ago, when I decided I can't go.
Yeah.
Because again, with grandchildren that are under 12 and haven't been vaccinated, I'm with them every day. And you can contract, you can get the virus and it be asymptomatic and even pass it on.
Right.
See? So I'm.
We're going to have to use you as the PSA for all this because my son's interning at the Hall of Fame and he's over there right now. He's the one. Like if you would have shown up, Gabe would have been the one driving you around in the golf cart.
Oh man. Well, give him my best. I'll see him next year, I hope.
That'd be great. He loves it. He's having such a good time over there.
It is wonderful. Those people do a great job there. And then being around the teammates of yesteryear, guys, you appreciate what they've done. Anybody. I mean, I don't know if either one of us know the odds on playing professional football from high school level on. And then to play as long as you did in professional football, or what?
Well, I don't know if it would have happened if it wasn't for people like you changing the game and paving the way. So I want to thank you for that, because you're the idol. You were the guy that made so many kids want to play the game. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Gus, and I hope you and I can get together again during the season, maybe, man.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Talk again.
Yeah, we'll go to a Jets game when they're 8-0.
Wow,
COVID may be over by then.
I am pulling for him, but you know what? I don't know. I guess there's probably odds on Kansas City maybe being 8-0 at one point. Halfway, it's not even halfway.
We got $1 on that bet in Vegas would probably, and if it happens, it'd probably win you a lot of money.
That's right. You know how hard it is to win, man. Competition is keen.
Yeah. Well, I hope their young quarterback can play pretty well.
There's not one out there, for the last 30 years that couldn't play pretty well.
You're right. Yeah, it's a tough place,
game, man. Yeah,
it's been a tough place. But Joe, I want to thank you. If you can hang on for a second, I'm going to close the show and just talk to you off the air for 2 seconds after we're done. All right.
Thank you. Yes, Gus. Of course.
All right. Hey, everyone. I want to thank you for joining me on Huddle Up with Gus. What a special show today. I want to thank all of our sponsors and really thank you, Joe, for coming on and sharing your story. Just somebody who grew up like I grew up, and we got to do the same job, which is incredible. And Joe, thank you so much. Thank you to all our sponsors. Sounder, I want to thank 1631 Digital News. And don't forget to go to Vegas Sports Advantage. Joe and I were just talking about it. Go place that bet with Vegas Sports Advantage for the Jets to be 8-0, and you might win some money. So they'll help you out. Use Huddle Up, and that's my code, and save 25%. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. What a great show, and we'll see you next time.
And that's a wrap, sports fans. Thanks for joining in the fun at the 1631 Digital Studios for another action-packed Huddle Up with Gus, featuring 15-year NFL quarterback Gus Frerotte. Huddle Up with Gus is proudly produced by 1631 Digital Media and is available on Apple Music.